Now that the checkboxes function has been released on the current channel of MS365, it's available to all Excel users. You'll find it in the control section of the Insert tab in the Microsoft ribbon. If you're keen to see what it can do, or you've tried it and want to learn a bit more about it, I've prepared a few example scenarios we can work through together. To insert a checkbox into your workbook, go to the Insert tab and under the Control section, click Checkbox, where you can use the keyboard shortcut Alt-N-C-B. These checkboxes are cell formatting, so can be copied by using the copy and paste commands, Control-C, Control-V, or by dragging the cells. The checkbox can be toggled in one of three ways. You can click on it with your cursor, you can press the space bar to toggle, or you can change the contents of the cell from false to true, to select it, and back to false to unselect it. The true and false states are the only arguments which toggle a checkbox, even if you use 0 for false or 1 for true, which works in some instances. Doesn't work in this instance, it just replaces the cell checkbox with the value. But if we delete the values out, the checkboxes come back with the false entry in them. If you have a toggled checkbox and you hit delete, it goes back to false. If you hit delete again, the checkbox disappears. As with 0 or 1, anything other than true or false will just display what you enter in the cell and not the checkbox. As I've shown, 0 and 1, any other number, any text, or any symbols. Deleting those out will bring the checkboxes back. The only other entry in a cell which will return a tick or unticked checkbox is a formula that returns either a true or a false value. Here in cell F4, I've got a checkbox where the cell contents refer to G4, the cell alongside, and that G4 has data validation rules on it that will only allow it to return a true or a false value. So if I toggle between those two values, that will change the checkbox. Checkboxes can be used as an output method by referring to a formula and not just an input method that users have to tick or untick. If you go into the formula bar and delete the entry for a checkbox, you get a grayed out checkbox, which indicates that the formatting is still there, but there is no entry to toggle the value. You can quickly reinstate this by pressing space or clicking on the cell again. The formatting of a checkbox cell is determined by the fill and font colours applied to that cell. So I have one over here which has a dark blue fill colour and a white font colour. If I go over to one of these and go into the format cells either through the drop down here, or I'll use the keyboard shortcut Control and 1. If I change the fill colour to a green and the font colour to, let's use this yellow, you'll see that is applied to that checkbox. In this first example, I've set up a very simple financial checklist that users can tick off to indicate that tasks are done. And as they tick them off, the tasks change from yellow to green. When all tasks are complete, the heading changes to indicate that they're complete, and that goes green as well. So let me just untick and I'll show you how this is done. So the checkboxes are basic true and false input boxes. There's no formula attached to those. The tasks are hard-coded. And the heading is the only dynamic text here. So it flips between all tasks complete and tasks outstanding. And it's just checking using the AND function if every cell in the checkbox range is true. If every value is true, the AND function returns true. If any of them are false, the AND function will return false. If I tick them all again and just untick any one of them, you'll see that the heading goes back to yellow. The colour changes are done with conditional formatting. So if I highlight manage the rules for the current selection, you can see that the text for the checkboxes and the tasks will flip between yellow and green depending on whether the checkbox itself is true or false. It's a very simple argument. So you refer to the checkbox. If that's true, it's green. You don't need to put any other arguments on because if it returns false, nothing will happen. Likewise, if it's yellow, we've just flipped that on its head. We've used the not function. So if it's false, the not will return true, so the formatting will be yellow. Similar for the title, but this time you're checking that every cell in the checkbox range is true, similar to the argument within the title cell itself. The yellow formatting, we've wrapped that in a not function, so it returns true when the and is false. In this next example of users inputting data into checkboxes, I've created a checklist for some data that I'm asking for from business units. As I get them, I start ticking them off, and the row will go from red to orange to indicate that some business units have returned data, and the percentage at the end just shows how many of the business units have returned that data or consolidation pack as a percentage of the total. I'm now at 75, and when I click the final one, it goes to 100% and the row goes green. Again, these are just input cells. The percentage at the end just takes an average of the four. Now, as true and false values are not numbers in this instance, I've converted trues to 1 and false to 0 by putting a double minus in front of the cell range. So that will turn the result from each cell into a 0 or 1. So where they're all ticked, it's an average of all ones, so it's 100%. As I untick them, I've got 2 ones, 2 zeros, so the average is 50%. Let's have a look at the conditional formatting to see how this is working. Highlight the whole range and go to Manage Rules. You can see that for each row, it is looking at the formula in column G being the percentage complete. If that is 0, so none are complete, it formats that row red and stops, doesn't process any more conditional formatting rules. If any of them are ticked, it moves on. If all are ticked, so the percentage is 100, i.e. an integer of 1, then the whole row gets formatted green, and again, it stops. If it's not, this final one picks up any other combination, so where the percentage is greater than 0, it's not going to pick up that all 4 are ticked because that's been dealt with previously. So if 1, 2, or 3 are ticked, it formats the row orange and stops. It's not really needed on that final rule, but done for completeness. In this final example, I'm using checkboxes as formula-driven output on a check sheet for some financial figures. So what I'm starting with is a trial balance from an accounting system, which I asked an AI tool to generate for me. I wanted to use Copilot. Copilot didn't seem to want to produce a trial balance which actually balanced. In the end, I managed to get ChatGPT to generate something for me. So I have various columns of financial information, and on the end I've just put in 3 check columns. One which shows the net debit or credit balance by deducting credits from the debits. One is the account and cost center combination to check for duplicates. And then a check of whether any of these values in column I appear more than once using a COUNTIF function. So there's 3 checks in place on this sheet. The first one is checking whether the trial balance actually equals 0. Because we're looking to return true or falses for the checkboxes, I've just asked if the sum of the net debit and credits equals 0. If it does, then the trial balance balances. The second check is, are the balance sheet entries equal and opposite to the profit and loss? So it's doing a sum of all the balance sheet entries, and then is that equal to the negative of all the P&L balances? If that is true, which it is in this case, then it ticks the checkbox. The third one is we're checking for no duplicate account combinations. So the formula is just saying, is the count of all combinations that we're seeing in this column here equal to the count of the unique combinations? If everything is unique, the 2 would be the same and it would be ticked. In this instance, it's not. So I can see here from my duplicate check column that I've got 2 entries here with the same entry on. So I need to get rid of one of those. And they've both got a value of 5,000 on. And if I delete one of the rows, I can see I've got no duplicates. So that one's ticked, but now I've deleted a value of 5,000 out of the table. So the other two checks are now not ticked. If I go back and change that value to 10,000, then they're all okay. Everything balances. So all the checkbox formula are returning true. And the top formula is one we've seen before. It's just using the AND function to check if cells B6, B8 and B10 are all true. If they are, then B4 returns true and is ticked. And then we've just got a formula over here that says if B4 is true, again, you're only looking to return a true or false, so you don't need to put any additional arguments there. It's realised that's true, so it's returning all checks okay. In terms of conditional formatting on these, we're just returning the font colour as green if the cell value is true. I hope that after seeing these examples, you find a place for checkboxes in your workbooks. My background is in accounting and financial analysis, so I went with what I knew for the examples. Please let me know in the comments what other uses you find for them. Please hit like if you found this useful and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.